Okay, everyone. This is Beth Kelly Galogally, and I am also here to welcome you to this wonderful class. I want to thank John Muir Laws so much for sharing his teaching pencil miles with us. After 35 years of teaching, we're so blessed to get to learn from him. And he has a special surprise for you. Get ready for it. We're going to now spotlight Jack.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to our Drawing Owls workshop. As many of you are aware, yesterday was a very important day in art and nature. It was Bob Ross Day. So this being one day after that, and I couldn't talk to you yesterday, Peapod and I just want to send a shout out to Bob Ross and thank you for connecting people with nature, with art, and kindness. Those three are so important to kind of how we're going to live our lives. And so with that, I'm going to set my bob aside and let's talk owls. And let's talk, first of all, if you are kind of new to this workshop today, we're going to be talking about some details to help us draw owls in the field. This workshop is a fundraiser. It's a fundraiser for the project which a group of nature journalists are going to be doing at the Amani Children's Home. Isn't that right, Peapod? Yes, it is. And so I'm going to bring up a share screen here. This workshop is a fundraiser for, there's a children's home, an orphanage in Tanzania. A group of us from a group of international nature journalists are going to be visiting Tanzania in February, and we are going to be teaching the kids there about nature journaling, how to draw the critters that they see, how to use nature journaling to enhance our curiosity and our observation. And we're then going to be taking those kids on a safari in Tarangire National Park, and it'll be the first time for I think most, if not all of those kids to be there in that park. It's going to be really exciting. So what we're doing here in this workshop is we are raising funds to help us buy supplies for all the kids, to help us feed them and water while we're there, park entrance fees, transportation. We're getting buses to bring all the kids to the park, and also to well, it's going to be a lot of fun. The kids actually have already started watching the Nature Journal Connection videos and are very excited about the process. So wanted to give you an update. This was as of last week where our fundraising thermometer sat. We are in the process of raising, Beth, I'm forgetting, my number brain isn't feeling good today.
$8,000 is our goal.
$8,000 is our goal. And as of last week, we were more than halfway there. That was great. So today, let me show you where we sit. And, whew, look at that. So almost to 80%. So we're getting a lot closer. We're dropping into the chat, and we will also have in the recording description a link where people can donate to this project. If it is possible to do this to help us and to help those children, we'd greatly appreciate it. This is, I think it makes it just so much more, the way I think about it, the way I feel about it is really different, sort of knowing that we're a group of us are kind of coming together to make something beautiful happen. We'd love to have you be a part of that, and please, if you are able to, support this project. If that doesn't work with your funding and finances at this time, I completely understand. You don't have to hang up on this show. We still want you here. But our request is that in your community, in your immediate community, that you do an act of kindness or stewardship that you otherwise wouldn't have done. So bring up your personal level of awesomeness and do something beautiful. Do something really beautiful to help each other and help this beautiful planet that we are all spinning on. Again, that link is in the chat, and you can follow that to be able to get that thermometer all the way to the top. thank you so much for your support, and thank you to all the people who have donated so far. And this is just one of many projects which we're going to be doing through the Wild Wonder Foundation. So that means that all these donations are tax deductible to the extent allowable by law. I don't know what that means, but they always say that, so I just did. Let's talk owls. So today, what I want to do is just sort of, I want to review kind of one idea from our workshop last time, and then we're going to, which is going to be looking at the eyes, right? So getting the eyes right is key for getting your owl to be kind of like looking back at you with that little kind of owl feeling. Stuffed. Oh, here's a stuffed owl. So, if the eyes aren't, looking back at you, then it's the owl drawing is not going to feel really owly. So getting those eyes is going to really help. Okay. And then we're going to be looking at kind of sculpting the form of the owl. Owls have all of this cryptic coloration on them that makes them blend in wherever they're sitting. And that cryptic coloration can confuse our understanding of the form. But if we're able to see past that and really see the structure there, we can then lock that into our drawings. And then when we put those patterns and markings on top of a form that makes sense, our owls will feel like they have structure rather than being a head with some eyes and then a whole bunch of kind of random streaks. So we're going to look at those random streaks and turn those streaks into non-random streaks, and it will be cool. We're really happy that you're with us. I would also like to send a shout out to my co-hosts today. I am supported today by Beth, Brooke, and Avea. So Beth Kelly Galogly, and Avea Moore, and Brooke, and oh, that's embarrassing, Brooke. You've just changed your last name, and I forgot. Help me out.
Hey, Jack, it's Morales. So
Thank you.
Brooke Morales.
I'm sorry, I feel really embarrassed, but I really, really appreciate you being here with me today, and thank you so much for helping me, and so special thanks to my sort of the behind-the-scenes team that is just making this all work smoothly for us today. If people have questions today, you can drop your questions into the Q&A box, and our moderators will be looking through those and passing some of those over to me. Because this is a webinar format, we're not able to kind of open up kind of a live chat, but they will be passing questions to me, and they'll try to do that in a timely way so that if I'm talking about something that kind of relates to what you're saying. All right, so Peapod's going to sit aside, and here we go. So this little guy is a owl skeleton, and underneath the hood, owls are just a ton of feathers, and there's this little skeleton sitting under there. Very, very powerful little critters, and actually no, this is but you'll notice that eye is sort of on the end of a big long tube. Let's take a closer look at the owl eye, and whoops, not that. I want this. I'm going to pull this longer, and I am going to change my camera. There we go. Right. So if I'm going to zoom down now onto this piece of paper. Zoom. All right. Let's just start with just a quick owl head refresher. And I'm going to draw a little circle here. Well, we need to zoom back out a little bit. Zoom. There we go. That's good. So I'm going to just start with a circle here, and I'm going to draw an arc across it, and I'm going to draw an arc across this way. This is the center line of my owl's head, and this is the line of my owl's eyes. So my eyes are sitting on this line. I'm going to just block in initially a couple of circles, but I am not, because it's looking a little bit off to the side, I'm going to make this one here a little bit closer to the center line. We talked a lot about why that is the last time we met. Then I'm going to put in a V over the top of its forehead here. And my owl has a, we put in a little puffy fluff here on either side of the beak. My beak is going to be here on the center line. Here is, but what I want to do here is I want to just take a look at these two owls. Facial disc. So I have this eye closer to the center line than this eye, and we really got into that why we see that when last week with our little apple. This owl, its eyes are kind of drooped a little bit. And I'm going to do my owl kind of droopy eye, kind of up on one side and then down. On the outside edge of the owl eye, I'm going to come down straight and then curve up into that. So this owl.
There's a request. Could you please move the mouse just a little bit?
Oh, yes, the little hand right in the middle.
Thank you.
Tickling the little nose here. Yes, there we go. Thank you so much. So the eye that's on the side that is closest to you, yeah, that's the easier eye. This eye over here is going to get weird. So we'll hit that eye in just a moment. But I'm going to put the pupil here in the center of the eye and think about kind of a little highlight of light hitting that. So again, what I did is I kind of made this angry eye shape, like I'm kind of a little bit upset about something, swung down straight on the outside and then arced over to that, and that helps me get this eye. The size of the pupil is going to change depending on how much light there is. If direct light is hitting it, it's going to be a smaller pupil, and you'll sometimes see it as a little circle there. If it's a little bit in the dark, then you'll see that pupil as larger. And owl eyes will adjust to the light that is directly hitting them. Your eyes kind of make an average for your pupils stay the same. You don't see the same thing on owls. So an owl can have one big pupil and one small pupil. So it's not actually a sign of brain damage when you see that on an owl.
Oh, Jack, I'm sorry to bother you again. Is it possible we can make your visualizer full screen?
Oh, what a good idea. There we go.
Thank you.
There we are. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm just going to hit this with my pen a little bit dark here. Now, there's kind of a cool thing that you'll see with eyes. The surface of this eye, the iris that is back there, let's say this has a yellow iris, that iris is actually set back from the edge of the eye. And so there's a little bit of an overhang. And the result is that the outside the outside of the eye, you can have a can make a little bit of a ledge, a lip that casts a shadow down onto that iris. I'm going to just dry this off for a moment. I used a lot of water. And so that means that if this eye is in light, you will often find a shadow cast across it like this, where the top part of that is in shadow, and the bottom part is catching the sunlight. And then the outer surface of this, the wet outer surface of the eye, can be catching a highlight. And you can often see that highlight. I'm going to here put it across this, across the iris, across the pupil. That shows you that they're both on the same surface. And I can notice that it's even on top of that shadow area. So how can you be seeing a highlight on top of a shadow? Well, the outer surface of this eye is not the surface that is getting the shadow. The outer surface of this eye can be out in the light, and that inner surface is catching the shadow. So if we had a side view of that, this would be the outside surface of the eye with the highlight hitting there. And then behind that, there would be a the iris of the eye, so that's that colored surface. And so this part back here can be in shadow, but this part can be out here on that's sticking out is the sun. And then that hole in the center, that's the pupil. That is, actually, owl eyes are kind of shaped like a cone like this, and they kind of go back to a really big structure inside. So the little pupil there lets light in. It's got all the light receptive cells back there. So that's why you can get that shadow across the top of the eye and also have the highlight in the shadow. It's a little bit counterintuitive. I'm just going to throw in a little bit of reflected light down here. With a dyeing gel pen, foil gel pen. So that's the near side eye. Near side eye, and we've got a recording out of our previous class. You can check that out there. The eye that is the challenging eye is this eye on the other side. And what we tend to do is draw them both the same way, kind of a mirror image of this. But this eye is turned more away from us. This eye is facing towards you. So imagine two planes like this. You're seeing them from the front. If I turn it this way, this surface here is pointing straight towards you, and you're seeing the owl point on. This surface over here, you've got a foreshortened view of that eye. So very often it is going to be a different shape. So expect this eye to be a different shape up here. Very often you'll see something like this. This one where you're kind of getting more of a round. This, you're seeing more of an ellipse. There's one other thing that's really interesting about this, is because this pupil is set back from the edge, it's not out here on the surface, that means that the pupil is not going to be right here in the middle where we'd expect it to be. What you're seeing is more of this back side of this wall of this eye here. The pupil then gets shifted in towards here, and it makes this owl look a little bit cross-eyed. And so in our heads, like if we were making up this owl, there's no way we draw an owl eye like that. But start looking around at a number of photographs. Check out birdpixel.com. Check out seeingbirds.com. or just do a Google search for owl head, and you'll see this sort of this look on this eye where this pupil is more towards the center line, because it is, if you imagine a, no, that diagram's not going to work. Oh, actually, yeah, if this is the outside surface of the eye, and this is then the surface kind of going down towards the pupil here, you can see on this cone that I just did, the bottom of it is shifted more this way, more this way. So if I have a cone with a bottom in it, and I'm looking straight into it, I see the bottom there. As I start to turn that cone, then what you get is the bottom there. So that you see the pupil then shifting towards the midline there. So that's just, I wanted to just start us with a little bit on those owl eyes, because being the windows to the soul and all of that, it's good to get your owl eye going. Now, let's put a little bit of owl body around that. All right, so think of the owl this way, our little feathered friend here. Well, I need to check which microphone I am on. Sound check. If I'm using this microphone, can I be clearly heard over here?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. So this is the little skeleton underneath there. And what I want to do is I want to think about this as having fluff around it. So here's the eye on the surface. Here's the tip of the beak on the surface. And what the feathers do is they're going to make a big fluff ball around this head. And here's the body. Here's the center line of its body. Here's it's got its wishbone. Here's its sternum. And so its body, the meat of its body is in here. But it's then going to have fluff around like this. So there's a lot of fluff that you get for the owl. And then you throw in, from this little point right here, a tail. We'll stick in a big tail. And its wing folds up over the side. Let's drop to a different color and throw in some wing here. Its wing is going to fold up over that. So there's this little tiny skeleton inside this big wad of fluff. And because there is so much fluff going on, this ball of the head and this sort of oval of the body, think of them sort of sinking into each other. This little model does a great job of simplifying our owl form. Then what I'm going to be doing is attaching a little bump onto the bottom of that for the base of the tail. And it's, whoops, what happened? There we go. And then my wing is going to make a big pad on the side. So the idea that here is that my owl then is made up of a head ball, and that head ball is going to fuse into a trunk ball. So this is my sort of kind of quick way of thinking about the structure of an owl. Getting the front coordinates of that are very, very helpful. So if I am, here's a line down the front of the head of my owl, and then I'm going to continue that right down its front. Sort of imagine the owl's little zipper. The owl had a zipper on its little owl jacket, on its owl costume. And we go right down the front here. If it's looking straight towards me, that zipper is right down the middle. So that's a very useful shorthand for a lot of owl bodies. And then depending on the species, the head can be bigger, the body can be smaller. Here's my saw-whet owl. Or my head can be smaller and my body can be bigger. Here's more of a barn owl. So I'll be looking at these to kind of sculpt my basic owl forms. I have to clear out of this, clear old drawings, close this out. All right. On the right, you see an owl with regular plumage, an albino great horned to the left of it. And notice how much those dark patterns on the one with plumage do an incredible job of making our understanding of what am I seeing here really confusing. It wants to, that's sort of implying an intentionality that isn't there. The effect of this is that the owl itself has that its contours are going to confuse you. It's meant to confuse. This is an adaptation that allows it to sit on a tree and blend into the tree instead of feeling like the form of an owl. If you feel like the form of the owl, all of the little birds in your area will find you and they will mob you and they will make your afternoon an absolute hell. Well, look at this eye over here. See how close that one is to the center line? Doesn't that look cross-eyed? That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's just draw over this albino owl here and think about it in terms of these major parts of the owl here. And all right, here I go. When I'm drawing an owl, I recommend that people first notice this angle here along the back, the negative shape along the back of the owl. If you start by drawing a head and then putting in a body, your body will probably be at the wrong angle. However, if you start by locking in this angle, you're going to be well ahead of the game. So what I will do is I will first block this in. I'll then block in just sort of a mass of the head. And then imagine I'm seeing through this here. I'll kind of get myself started down the other side of the body. This gives me a place to then block in this oval of the body in here. And then I think of how does this head just sort of morph into the body. On the heads themselves, that crosshairs through the middle of it is incredibly, incredibly helpful. That's going to allow me to place my features on my head with symmetry. Let me see here. I'm going to jump over to a different color here. On this little one that is looking to the side here, my center line would be here.
And just notice that this eye here is much closer to the center line than this eye over here. So my approach here is I block in the angle on the, what I would sort of, if I have a view of part of the back, I will block in that back angle. Block in a head and a little bit kind of wrapping around the front of the chest there. That allows me to block in then an oval in here. And then I'm thinking about how does this section here morph into that, and where is the center line of this head? Which way is it looking? If the chest was turned towards me, I'm going to imagine that this one is. If the chest was turned towards me, I would then also be looking at where is sort of the center line, where's it, the zipper going on this little owl. So let's draw some owls together. And what I did is I just went through YouTube, or not YouTube, but Google image search, and I pulled out as many photographs as I could of albino owls. And these are really useful because we don't get confused by all the patterns on them, and we can initially hit the structure. So in this workshop, we're going to start with the structure, and then we're going to wrap those patterns around that structure in a moment.
So Jack, I just want to say, I think the technical term for these are owlbinos.
Albinos. Oh, you are dangerous. You are dangerous. I like what you did there. And oh, check that out. Very nice. We are back. We are back. All right. So I'm going to, here's my two little friends. And there we go. Let's work on that one on the left. How would I block that one in? Here's what I would do. I'm going to just start along the left-hand side of its body. There's something like that. And along the right-hand side, I'm going to put a little ball for a head. And on the right-hand side of the body, it's coming down and a little step out. And like that. So it's got a little bump over there. And then that allows me to put in a bubble here. And then I'm thinking, oh, my head is going to be kind of coming around like that. And it's looking a little bit over to the left. And on this, its tummy is a little bit over to the right. And then we've got a little branch that it's sitting on. And I see some tail sticking out there. So that's my scaffolding for this drawing. What about its friend? Look at that line down the back at the side of the left side of the head, out and down. That's my angles. And then I'm putting in a ball for my head, and going this side of the body is pretty straight. And then I'm going to attach this head on, make sure that that's sort of rounded on. And then this one is looking over to the left. So I'm drawing this curved line over like this and a little bit up. And the center line of its body is going to be right here. It has little footsies sticking out here. And for this, I'd probably put on a wing, and let me just sort of show you kind of a neat little shorthand for kind of quickly placing my wing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make kind of a big wing oval, saying roughly in here, your wing is sticking in something like that. I'm not even worried about primaries, secondaries, coverts, any of those things. I'm saying roughly your wing is in here, and that gives me a little bit of room on the back here for the back of the owl, the scapular feathers in the back. And then my wing is going to be operating in here. I want just a simple little shape that I can use to kind of block that form in. So this gives me my initial line into this owl. From there, I can start to play more. The eye that's on the side that's closest to me is making a big circle. The eye that is further away is closer in, and look at what it's doing. It's doing the exact same thing which we saw right up there. And so I'm expecting this eye to be doing something different. Because I'm expecting that, I can see it. I'm going to move that side of the head in a little bit closer. Knowing that that eye is going to try to trick you really helps, really helps. Otherwise, I get confused on drawing owl faces. And we kind of going to come in here. There's a little bit of a bump. So that is some initial blocking in on owls. Let's take a look at another little friend. Woo, kind of surprised looking, right? So the eyelid drops down from the top when the eyes are all the way open. Then you get this really kind of wide-eyed look. And I'm going to handle drawing this in exactly the same way. So on mine, I'm looking at now the right-hand side of the bird. Here's the side of its head, and then its body kind of comes down at an angle like that. A small head, so the bigger the owl, the smaller the head. The bigger the owl, the smaller the head. Only exception to this is the great gray owl that just has a ridiculously large Humpty Dumpty head. And but generally speaking, the bigger the owl, smaller head. So that means small owls. Let's just drop back to those cute little beasties we saw a moment ago. Small owls, big heads. Look at how big my head is. So when you see a big old head like that, you go like, oh, boop, that's new. It's a little owl. And when we get to a larger owl, that head proportionate to the body is smaller. So I then kind of get like, what are my angles down here? There's a little kind of inflection point where it turns down like this. And then that allows me to say like, oh, you've got a body that's down in here. And then there's a little, think of the head neck area like this. If this is my head, I'm going to attach a little cone down to that. So this is a little cone that is going to fit around that head. So on this one, it's going to have a little cone neck here, and it is looking pretty straight towards me. And its zipper line is going to be over there. And what am I going to do for the wing? I'm going to draw on a big oval. The tendency on drawing something like this is to start drawing an owl this way, is that you see this owl and you kind of go like, oh, that is so cool. Here's my eye, and then here's my other eye, and then it's going to have a little beaky business going on in here. And then you sort of start with that and you start working your way out from this. And by the time you're done, you'll have parts where individual details are working for you, but the whole thing is going to be misproportioned. Probably what's going to happen is the head's going to be really big and the body's going to be really small, because whatever attracts our attention the most in a picture, we will tend to draw that larger. Oh, so cute. All right. So here's this. So what is it that makes it look cute? what does it make, even though it's got like the demon eyes, right? Cute with demon eyes. So it's that it's got a big head. Big heads look cute to us. Small heads don't look cute. The reason is we're used to seeing babies with neonatal features. That is a big head. So if you get kind of a cute hit from looking at an owl, then the reason you're sensing cute is big head and big eyes in proportion to that head. That's what makes something look cute. So on this lovely little screech owl, let's do the same thing. We're just going to, I'm going to now go on the left-hand side of its body. Now I'm going to think, you got a big old head. And what's happening on the right side of your body? And now let's take this head, think about how it kind of contours into the body. And this one is looking straight at me. Maybe my eyes are a little bit higher on the head. That's so cool. Got a wing over on this side. I've got my center line down here. Little owl feet sticking out. Notice that there's, how many toes do you see sticking out towards you? How many toes do birds typically have sticking forward? So this is kind of an owl thing. A few other birds like woodpeckers and roadrunners, you'll see two toes sticking forward, but owls usually see two toes sticking forward. Not always, they can take one toe and rotate it around, but very often you'll see two toes forward, two toes back. And what that does is as the little foot comes down to catch a mouse, it's got this sort of four-pronged mouse trap that you get kind of coming in. So they'll have two toes forward, two toes back.
Hey, Jack, don't growl at me, but we're halfway through. Just wanted to give you a quick time check.
Oh, that's so wrong. Oh. Well, maybe this is a good time for transitioning to starting to kind of, we're getting these sort of basic owl forms on our piece of paper. Let's kind of work up the shape a little bit more. And then what we'll do is we'll drop patterns in on top of that. So now we're going to go from this idea of getting the basic form to what's my next step? What's my next step? I want to make this look more owly. Well, let's kind of give this guy its V forehead, its eyes. It looks like these eyes are one eyeball width apart. So you've got an eye in here, you've got an eye in here. These ones are doing that kind of X face thing where I've got a beak down here. And I'm going to make your forehead a little bit lower. Give you a little nifty tuft here and a little tufty tuft here. Those aren't horns. Those are little feather tufts. And I am going to, all right, let's take a look at this shape of the eye. So I'm going to have a curve on the top. Notice that the curve on the top comes up in the corner, down, straight down on the outside. Where have we seen this before? And then up to the corner. Kiss. Right? So that little formula gives me nice owl eyes, but always beware of a formula because sometimes the formulas will, if you've got a formula of like, I think I know how to draw an owl eye, then you'll draw what you think you should see rather than what you do see. And this one here, I've got these little bristles around the beak. I'm going to draw this line come out here and then down. A little bit of a peak in the top of the head. This little owl is so adorable. Oh. And then I've got this nice little kind of line down here, this sort of rough, where the head comes in. How much detail am I going to put in on the wing? Well, I don't see much detail, so I won't put in hardly any detail at all. But I will show that there is this form that is tucking up into the feathers here. What about the other side of the owl? Here's the center line of the owl. Remember this, the zipper on the owl, that's where it zips up its little owl suit. Now that I've got these marks on my piece of paper, oh, this is interesting. This owl in the photograph actually has its head slightly turned, not as much as that, but because I drew mine just straight crosshairs, I didn't get that. It's only now that I'm noticing that. So I could go back in and change that. I'm not going to, but notice that once I'm this far along on a drawing, my tendency is not to want to change something, even though I notice that I've made a mistake. Isn't that interesting? That's why it's a good idea that the earlier in your drawing process that you kind of catch yourself making marks that aren't what you're actually seeing, the greater your chances are of being able to get in there and fix that. So what I want to now think about is, how does sunlight fall on this owl? How does sunlight fall on this owl? And looking at some albino owls is very, very instructive, very, very useful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little Tombow brush pen here, and I'm just going to use that to put in where I see some shadows. Around the edge of its whiskers here, I see a little bit of shadow. On the edge of that eye, I see some shadow. A lot going on underneath this head. And the light coming from the side, this whole area here is in shadow. And notice that I'm going to leave a little bit of non-shadowed part on the left-hand side here. See that? I left that part white. You can see a little bit of reflected light coming along right in there on that right-hand side. Some transmitted light kind of coming through here, so it's a little bit lighter in there. And in this, where's the deepest, darkest part of the shadow? The deepest, darkest part of the shadow is right in here. And that's about all I'm getting. Oh, maybe a little bit right in here. So I've simplified my shadow to 3 values. I have the white of the paper. I have a middle value, and I have my darkest value. And that I find is a very useful way to think about shadows. And when you're looking at an animal with the patterns on it, it's sometimes harder to see these shadow patterns. That's why looking at a few albinos is a great exercise. Oh, nom, 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 nom. Right, so let's just look at this in terms of shadows. I'm seeing a little bit of shadow under the facial disc, shadow around the edge of the whiskers on the top, on the facial disc there, sort of around the beak there. I'm seeing right here underneath, sort of where the cone of the head attaches into the body, a shadow point there, and then shadows going down on the lower belly, the legs facing forward back out into the light, and these recessed shadows back there. So doing a shadow analysis helps me be able to draw what I see. I'm now going to flip to a new page, and I'm going to let's play with this bird. I've got a little bit of the side of a head here, side of a body, and I'm going to put in a little head just to make sure I don't miss it. I want to make sure this time I tilt my head. And then I've got an owl body that is down in here. Let's take this head and put it in here. Little mouse mark. So here you kind of get a sense for, because this doesn't have large chest feathers, you actually can see these legs tucking down here. You go like, wow, you are really, really leggy. A lot of other owls are also really leggy. They just hide their legginess in, they hide their legginess in shaggy feathers. You don't get that on the barn owl here. So I am going to now, here's the side of the little facial disc. I have an eye kind of squinting off on this side. Here's the side of the facial disc here. It has a little bit of a center line down the middle. Has a beak. And then I'm going to put in a big kind of mass of this rodent slanting out to the right. Give this owl a little bit of a widow's peak on the top. And then we're going to swing around here. And isn't this interesting that you can see this big kind of bump here where the the neck is coming in. I like on these wing lines here, I'm gonna put a little dot right up here, right where kind of the accent of this wing starts. To get these leg positions, it really helps to put in the negative space between those legs first. This little shape here. And then that will carve the legs on the outside. If you draw this leg and then draw the other leg, it won't be as easy. But if I start with drawing the negative shape between those, it's going to be a lot easier for me. Might as well get some owl toes in here. I'm going to draw these little claws that are coming down. That left foot, which is actually its right foot, the foot which we're seeing on our left, we actually appear to be seeing 3 toes forward. The one on the right, 2 toes forward. So this one did not get the memo that being a good little owl, you're supposed to have 2 toes forward. So just remember there's a sort of a general rule, and when the bird breaks the rule, believe the bird. So to handle those toes, I'm just kind of drawing in the claw, and then just a suggestion of there's some toe-ness behind that. So now we've been able to block in a basic owl form. we have a little bit of thought about how that's a three-dimensional volume that we're looking at with a it's a three-dimensional volume, but it's entirely without markings on it. Let's now add markings on top of this form. Just a few more beautiful shots of owls. Again, go on, if you want to kind of play more with this, you can go on to just Google and do a Google image search for albino owl. And you'll get these great little beasties that pop up, and you can play with those. All right, now we're going to take all these ideas and put them together. Actually, first, one more little bit of theory. If I have a ball and there are lines that are wrapping around it from the top to the bottom, actually, I'm gonna take my little owl friend. If I have a ball and there are lines that wrap around from the top to the bottom, in the center, those lines will be going straight from the top to the bottom. As you get closer to the edge, if there's one that was going around the edge here, it would be making the shape of the circle itself. And that means that one in between is going to be a little bit straighter and a little bit curvier. The closer it is, if it's right in the middle, it'll be kind of part way between those two. The closer towards the center, the straighter it is. And the closer it is to the outside, the more it does that. So I want to think of this idea that lines on the outside of a ball, the more they're out here, the more they're going to be curving. And that does a lot to give a form shape and volume. This is a flat circle. The minute I've got this, you kind of get the sense that there's little lines sort of wrapping around a little ball. And let's look at this owl and think of it on these terms. What do you notice? Where could you use that trick? Let me give you one other thought. If I have a cylinder with evenly spaced lines around it, those spaces are going to appear wider in the middle and closer together as you get towards the sides. And
sorry,
in between,
sorry to interrupt you, Jack. We've got about half an hour left.
half an hour. Oh, you are dangerous. You're on fire today. Check you out. Well, we're going to try to make this a hoot. Oh, that was really yummy. Thank you. So if we have streaks on something, streaks towards the middle may be more widely spaced. Ones towards the outside edges are going to appear closer together to each other. So wide spaces on our streaks here, narrow spaces on our streaks towards the edges, skinnier, narrower towards the edges. And we have this idea of following the curve, and we have wider and more widely, both the streaks themselves being wider and being more widely spaced, and on the outside edges, they're closer together and skinnier. Let's take these two delicious ideas and wrap them around an owl. Okay? This little buddy in front of us is going to help us. So this is the great gray owl. Remember when I said this is a big owl with a big head? it is boldly the exception to the rule. And here is kind of a quick great gray owl moment. And it has a little stick that is sticking up in the middle here with its little toesies sticking on it, and the rest of its owliness and wing feathers and tail feathers are going to be hanging down behind that. And it's got its head up here, looking very serene, and it has its big owly neck, this little neck zone. So useful. But let's imagine that we're drawing in. Let's give ourselves some shadows. See where we have shadows on this one. So I'm going to draw in some shadows down here on where its chest feathers are kind of coming in on either side of that. I'm going to give this owl some shadows on the bottom of this throat and here on the bottom of the head. Little shadow over here, little shadow over here. And I'm going to ignore the head from at this point because we've talked a lot about drawing owly heads, but I want to play with this body. So I want to think of wrapping these little stripes around. So if I have a stripe here, this next one, I really want to think of curving it out more here. So if I've got this one here is going to angle out this way, and any little kind of marks that I make are going to suggest this kind of wrapping around here. And what it does is it makes this throat zone look rounded. And look, I can do the same here on its little tummy. If I'm in the center, I can be a big wide streak like this. But what am I going to do if I'm a streak that's coming out on this way? I'm going to go this way. And then I'm going to wrap around here more like that. And what about over, then I'm going to get over here, skinny. So what I'm doing is I'm using this little ball trick to round this form. Make my streaks skinnier and closer together on the side. That's what I'm expecting to see. Otherwise, we have this owl belly like this, and we go, oh, it's got streaks across it. But those streaks are going to, they go across the contour of this. They're cross contour lines, and they're going to define the form of this lovely little owl. Oh, yes. So that anytime you see streaks or on something, and owls do streaky like a boss, right? This is going to help you be able to define that form. Oh, yes, it will. Oh, okay. Can we handle this? Let's look at this in terms of these ideas we've just been talking about. In the center here, this whole surface is turned towards me more. This surface over here is turned away from me more. These are going to be thicker streaks in the middle coming straight down, showing more of the arc of the edge as you get out towards the sides. Oh yeah, this defines the form of this owl. So these streaks are the golden ticket to making your owl have volume. You want an owl with volume? Pay attention to those streaks. All right, so on this one, it's got a head that comes down like this. It's got a little owly shoulder that comes down. I'm going to give it a little owly head. This is a barred owl. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? All right, so we're looking in this direction. Want to remind folks, if it's possible to make a donation to support our project at the Amani Children's Home, please do. If you're not able to do that, please do something beautiful and awesome.
And another reminder for folks, donors of $100 or more will receive a special gift, which is Jack's Owl sticker set.
Ooh.
So I'm going to put that in the chat as well. And someone also asked about the deadline for this fundraiser. We are going to raise funds until we reach our goal, which we are plugging along quickly, and hopefully we'll be done fundraising soon. But the trip itself is in February, so we still have some more time to raise funds, but we do need to purchase some supplies because we're going to be making a nature journal kit for each of these children, including a bag and colored pencils and a John Muir Laws journal and some other items. So we'll be purchasing those supplies in time to send them along with the group that's going to Tanzania.
Thank you, Beth. That's really helpful. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. You know, when you got your own kit of journaling supplies, think about how that motivated you. So on this one, the zipper is so important. So the zipper on the head, the middle of the head is coming down here, and then it's looking over its little throat bump, the middle of that coming down here. Or actually, I'm going to do this just to help me visualize it kind of curving under there. Ooh. And then I'm going to come down here on the belly. So the zipper line is not in the middle. This side is bigger, this side is smaller. And in this area here, I have streaks that are coming down and in, kind of down and in like this. All right. And over here, we're going out to the sides more. So just a few little placeholders. Let's give this owl a little bit of, well, maybe I start to define it a little bit. I'm going to put in a little dark shadow here. And here. Side of my head comes down. I have my little throat section. And then my chest comes out and then back in. Now, I'm going to give this, where are there shadows? There are shadows that are arcing up in here. So coming out along the bottom of this bulge. This whole side of the head is in shadow. This whole side of the body here. So mostly in shadow, there's a little kind of triangle of light that it goes up into this area here. Now, so what I've done is, now if I put the shadows on the end, I will get so lost in the I will get so lost in the marks and the patterns on it that I'll probably forget to do it. So here, just to really see, when I do this, it really helps this owl pop as a three-dimensional form. Eye closer to the center line. Ooh, a little shadow right up here. Ooh, that's kind of neat. But now the streaks on this thing are going to define this shape in a wonderful, wonderful way. So I've got streaks that come down and are broad, right? So, and some of these are actually kind of bigger towards the bottom and up like that. So I'm not copying it streak for streak, but kind of getting a general sense of what these streaks are doing. And then as the streaks come in here, they're turning around in like that. And what about the streaks out this way? I'm gonna make a few of these skinnier. And over here. Now, as I'm putting in these streaks, what you want to do is to make your marks regularly irregular. You don't want to get this feeling of a symmetry like this. Bunk, 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 bunk. Sort of feeling like prison bars. You want it to sort of have an organic feel to it, and something that will help a lot with that is if there is an irregularity to your marks, which is probably what you're seeing on your owl. Skinny out on this side. Make these ones out here really skinny. You want an irregularity to those marks. And the that is going to make it look more like a natural or organic form. If it's really symmetrical, it won't. So these lines wrap around the head, and as I'm looking at it, I'm going to think of this collar. Actually, let's kind of take a look at lines that are kind of coming this way on a globe. These, so essentially, oops, I'm not on the screen. Thank you. Essentially, these latitude lines coming around this way. So I'm going to just, to round this form, I'm going to, as these lines are coming around, I want to think of them wrapping around this form here. All right, see how these are wrapping around this axis. Finally, the stuff out here, there's sort of a checkerboard pattern out here. And how do I go about handling that? I'm not going to get lost in this detail, but I want to think of these as sort of wrapping around this way. So these lines will be also wrapping around, and so regularly irregular. Want to give this one a little bit less of a flat top. Maybe not that much of a dome head. Little barred owl. I want to do a quick time check. How am I doing?
Jack, you have about 15 minutes left.
Okay. Oh, actually, I want to get in some of these sort of heavier streaks in here on this one. See, this is what I'm kind of, as I'm doing this, these marks, I'm thinking regularly irregular. Oh, look at how this eye way too high. This eye way too high. Isn't that interesting? So those eyes actually ought to be somewhere down here in that head. That will make it look right. I kind of like those eye shapes, but they're in totally the wrong place. So if these little framework marks that I put are in the wrong places, when I get to adding in detail, I will be following them, and that and I'll end up with a nicely shaped eye that's just in the wrong place, right? So these little guidelines that I make at the start really help me be able to flesh this out later on. And so something I didn't do here is to stop, check to see that those marks are in the right place. Is that where my eye line is going? Yes. Okay. No. Change it. But once I'm at this state, like, oh man, I don't want to get in there and like move those around. Then I'd have to change all the shading on the side of the face. And so our tendency, our sort of default position is usually just, I'm just going to leave it. That's just sort of reinforcing this idea that at the start of a drawing, we want to, oh, look at those lovely contours. At the start of a drawing, we want to check for the locations of all those sorts of things. Look at this one in terms of how you would use these bars and these shapes to describe contours. Here, latitude lines, here, essentially these longitude lines, skinny out towards the side here. But this crazy pattern is what I was hoping we might be able to do before we wrap. Because you might look at this and go like, oh, I think I'll draw a barn owl instead, right? Because this bad boy is just a little bit too crazy for me. But we can simplify this. We can actually handle this in a way. Whoops, no, come back. We want our little friend there, the little Western screech owl here, going, oh man, you can't draw me. I've got too much of a crazy pattern going on. Oh, what you gonna do with that? Well, let's take a look at that little bit of owliness. And how we might do that. So I'm going to get the back of the head here and the side of the body. I'm going to have a big wide head here because it's a small owl. Big head. And then this side of the body got kind of a body kind of coming in here. The center line of that is something in this. Center line here, something like that. And I've got an eye. The eyes are roughly one eye apart. So this eye is facing more towards me. So I can see all of this eye and then spacing. And this eye is smaller, right? The pupil is offset. All those things I'm expecting to see now. But think how easy it would be to draw this owl if you weren't expecting that, to have that come and kind of bite you in the tail at the end of the drawing. When at that point, remember, like, it wasn't until the very end of this one that I realized, like, oh, you kind of sit back and you go, ah, and then you go like, oh, my eyes are too high. Right? So, you've got a little bristly whiskers on either side here, lovely little facial disc, and there's a little bit of head that you see on the side here, not so much on this side. And so we're going to come down here, a little bit of a chin area. We're going to come down over.
I apologize for missing it, Jack, but what kind of owl is this again?
Oh, this is a screech owl, a Western screech owl.
Thank you.
So I have lines that are generally coming down this way here. I have lines that are kind of coming out this way in here. I have lines that are curving in here. And I have the edge of our little owl hidey hole. A little bit of an owl toe sticking through here. All right. Now, this time I am going to stop and check and see how I've sort of placed things. And there's more of a kind of wide area in here, kind of that where that head comes in. All right. Now, my target is going to be this owl's belly because we've done a lot of owl heads. If there's time, I'll kind of get in there and work on that owl head with you. But I do want to respect people's time to try to end on time, which gives me, am I correct that I have 6 minutes?
That is correct, Jack. You have 6 minutes.
Okay.
You need to go over just to finish. Of course, we understand, but we also understand respecting everybody's time too.
All right. So I'm just going to bring this little, so these little braces here on the side of the facial disc, those really kind of give me kind of a nice little anchor where I'm going to start my drawing. Here's the side of this. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of making a few little lines to be the edge of this fluff, kind of coming into this fluff. And so those lines then are going to get incorporated with it. And that makes this tummy just look a little bit, just a little bit fluffier here. I've got the reason I'm able to get these really dark lines is this is 2B lead in my mechanical pencil, 2B lead. I love 2B lead.
Just want to remind the participants today that we'll also be recording. We are recording this session, so you can go back and watch it as many times as you'd like in the future. And we will have those uploaded to the new Wild Wonder YouTube account within the next week or so, probably well before a week. So we will send you a link for that as well. So just keep your eyes open for that link.
All right. Notice here, thank you so much for that. And isn't it cool? We're going to have our own Wild Wonder YouTube link. You can just imagine all the cascade of good things that are going to be coming in there for you all. We're really looking forward to providing a lot of really useful content for folks. So in here, I've got these little lines. Notice these are kind of following the contour of the head. That little curve in them curves that head. Now let's get out onto this tummy. I'm going to start. So a lot of these feathers have this sort of a pattern on them. There is a central streak down the middle of the feather, and then there are these little kind of anchor marks that kind of come off of it like that, so that the feather has an overall pattern like that. I'm going to start by the verticals, and then instead of drawing it feather by feather, I'll draw it part by part. So I'm going to put in those vertical feathers, and then I am going to then I will put in the then I'll put in those more horizontal marks. So in here, I've got a couple of really big feathers, and I'm putting those in with kind of a little bit of squiggle in my pencil here. So my pencil strokes are actually making these marks a little bit rougher. And I'm kind of looking at the direction that they go. And then some smaller marks up here. Regularly irregular. Don't want too much symmetry coming into this, too much sort of what will feel like kind of planned. Whereas I want to get the general feeling of how these feathers are going. I don't have to copy them feather by feather, but see how this direction here of some of these marks helps this form of this owly tummy change. Oh, I should have put on my shadows. I didn't do that earlier. I'm going to give myself a little bit of shadow down here. Give myself a little bit of shadow going up in here. Yeah, little owl. So more of these little marks in here. Let's have thin marks coming out here. They kind of get into a zigzag and then come down. And I'm going to pull those in here. See how these lines wrap around the contour of the body. It's little longitude lines, following the curve, following the shape of this thing. My marks also can be darker at the bottom and fade out towards the top. And, oh, my time is up. No, I'm going to apologize for folks. I'm going to go a couple minutes over just to put in some horizontal bars on this. And you'll see that these really start to look owly. So now with a little bit of lighter pressure, I'm kind of coming along these and I am making little horizontal marks. And I really want to get those over some of these feathers so that this, you're seeing this this combination of these horizontals. But with these horizontals, I also want to think of what they do. So notice if I've got a little sphere here, if the equator is coming around here, as the equator wraps around, what does it do when it gets over here? It curves up like that. This is the pole here, right? We're seeing these lines as they come around, they're curving here. So I don't want to take these straight out to the edge. I want to have these curve up as they are hitting this edge here. So any horizontals that are coming in this way, I'm thinking of those wrapping around this rounded form like a good little latitude line. Oops, I'm off the screen. Sorry about that. So if that was all done off the screen. So I've got, see these lines, they're coming like that. I'm gonna make this edge just a little bit fluffier. In the center here, I'm gonna do them in little sections like this, little section here. Instead of going like this across a large area, putting bars across it, imagine these are made up of little feathers that are doing this, and then there's another little section in here. So I can do them in little pieces. When I see one of these big streaks though, I'm intentionally going to give it its own kind of clear marks coming off of it. And leave some parts of the chest here leave some parts unmarked. Now I'm going to just add in a little bit more shadowy roughness, also suggesting that volume. And there are complex markings on the tummy of an owl. Now, if I'm going to be really tempted to fill in all these little spaces here. It's going to look a lot better if I leave some of these open. Some of these open. Kind of create some of this just suggestion of some of these little kind of more bare spots. And that is some fun playing with the patterns that you'll see on these owls. And so what I want to recommend that you do is let's remember what our order of operations was. We started with just kind of blocking in the angles, the shape of this owl. Big head on a smaller owl, smaller head on a big owl. We got those frames of reference. What are our kind of crosshairs on the face doing? What is our zipper doing on the tummy of the owl? And then we refined those forms a little bit, that initial part maybe with my non-photo blue pencil, and then grabbing my 2B. And if you don't have this, that's okay. So it can be 2B or not 2B. And then I put in some of the shadows. I blocked in shadows to try to help my brain think of this as a three-dimensional form. It's better to put those shadows in early. Otherwise, if they kind of are an afterthought, they'll feel like an afterthought, and they can sometimes mess with some of the fine details that you put in. My final step was to start to put on those details, and I'm particularly looking for these streaks, the streaks on the owl, and how those define the contours of the form. I'm looking for what I call a cross contour line, one that will go across this contour line and help me sort of see that this part is bulging out, this part is recessed, This part is it's a round body, and we're curving around the side of it, and that you can actually see that there, kind of coming down and curving, hooking up there. See that little line hooking up. And this helps us with owls. If you're thinking like, yeah, but you didn't do the owl's head. That was last week's class. And so this one, we kind of kissed the head a little bit. But if you are just coming, if this is the first one, you will have the recording up. It was a full class on drawing owl heads and faces and getting them to kind of turn to the side. We looked at a couple of the critical things about getting those eyes looking back at you, and it's a ton of fun. This workshop was brought to you by the Wild Wonder Foundation, and you can learn more about that at Beth, can we make the announcement?
Yes, our website is wildwonderfoundation.org. I'm putting that in the chat right now.
Great. So you can find that at wildwonderfoundation.org. We're going to be increasing the amount of resources there for people who are nature journalers, for people who are mentors, for people who are looking for ideas and tricks and inspiration and mentors. It's going to be a real hub for this community, and we're very, very excited about it. Again, if you've been able to support our orphanage project, we really are grateful to you for that. And if you're not able to, let's look intentionally for think like an opportunity to go do something awesome and make this world just a little bit better that you otherwise wouldn't have done. Or you know what you can do? You can do both. Yeah, you can. It's up to you. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to thank Beth, Brooke, and Avea for having my back on the back end here. Really appreciate your help. And before we wrap, Beth, do we have any other community announcements?
I don't think so. You are the jack of owl trades.
Oh!
And we are owl grateful to you for this wonderful class. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your wise owl wisdom on how to draw owls. And we will be sending out the recordings of these classes to everyone who registered by November 10th. It'll probably be sooner than that, but check your email for that. And we do appreciate everyone's donations. There's links in the chat, and we'll also send those again in your email as well.
Thank you so much, dear friends. Be well, be kind, and we will see you around the sketchbook.